What's up, guys? I'm Chad Barnes, and welcome to the channel. Here, it's all about real car talk, from simple fixes to smart driving tips and keeping your ride in top shape. If that sounds good to you, go ahead and give the video a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button, and make sure you watch all the way through. There's a lot of good stuff coming. Let's get to it.
The hero of our story, Renault Sandero Stepway, was first shown by Renault do Brazil in 2008. The French brand did not want to lag behind the German competitors. The design was done by Renault Design Barcelona studio, and it was made exactly according to the recipe described above. The novelty immediately gained popularity in Brazil, Argentina, and Mexico. In May 2009, the car was shown at the International Motor Show in Barcelona. In September began its sales in Europe under the brand Dacia, and in Russia, the assembly of Renault Sandero Stepway at the plant Avtoframos was launched under the herringbone in December 2009. In addition to Brazil, Romania and Russia, Sandero Stepway assembly was organized in Colombia, Morocco, South Africa and Iran. The Russian Sandero Stepway was distinguished from its Brazilian and European relatives by the design of the front end, as well as the range of engines. It included three motors, 8-valve K7J and K7M with a volume of 1.4 and 1.6 liters and an output of 75 and 84 horsepower, respectively, as well as 1.6-liter 103 horsepower 16-valve K4M. In pair with 8-valve engines worked 5-speed mechanics JH3, and for 16-valve engines was available either 5-speed mechanics Junior 5 or classic 4-speed automatic DP2. The car was distinguished by 20 mm increased ground clearance, 175 mm with full load or 195 mm without load, and in terms of equipment, was something between the Expression and Prestige versions of the base model Sandero. At the same time, for Sandero Stepway was offered a number of options, unavailable for these variants of the road hatchback. The car immediately caused a mixed attitude to itself because of its pronounced advantages, quite significant advantages over competitors in a similar price range, and at the same time annoying shortcomings that sometimes lead to complete bewilderment. However, for many buyers who could not afford to buy a normal crossover, Stepway became the only option to solve their transportation problems due to the low price. The production of the first Renault Sandero Stepway at the Moscow plant continued until 2014, when it was replaced by the second generation, which appeared in Europe 2 years earlier, and these days the model is quite available on the secondary market. In connection with the rampant rise in prices for new cars, the purchase of such a car may be of some interest. 75 horsepower version of 2011 to 2012 year of production can be bought for 275 to 280,000 rubles, and the top, with a 103 horsepower motor and hydro-mechanics. 2013 to 2014 year, for 950 to 970,000. But is it worth it? Maybe the cars offered on the market are remnants of former greatness, and the car itself is not suitable for everyone and leaves a very ambiguous impression. As the owners write, sometimes you begin to hate it, get tired of it, but at a certain moment you fall in love with it with new force, and trust it as the best friend. That's the struggle of opposites. And what else do they write? For what do they love, and for what do they hate? Let's find out. The first thing that should be taken into account by any person who is going to solve the problem of lack of budget for the purchase of a vehicle at the expense of the secondary market, and considering Sandero Stepway as one of the options, is that the car is completely devoid of any charisma. Someone perceives this crosshatch as quite cute, but the majority writes that the appearance is not good, well, or simply do not write anything. In the best case, they state that it looks somewhat restrained, but nothing irritates the eye. Approximately the same is written about the interior. The range of evaluations varies from shabby and Spartan to I cannot mentally outline the interior of the cabin, something somewhere white, something somewhere black, and that's it. I made a conclusion: there is no interior as such, there is a functional set of panels, and only that. But the main thing is that in the mass of reviews the authors write that Stepway lacks some zest, character, feelings. I, of course, have the traits of a practical and pragmatic person, but even I sometimes want to release energy. For many it becomes a reason for selling. The car has ceased to please, just zero emotions from driving. or even the reason for refusal of purchase if you are looking for a real budget car or you are closer to 60 years old and you need to take your grandmother to the dacha with seedlings on the roof. This is your option. In general, the image of the anti-hero Stepway is drawn out. A single man from 25 to 35 years old, lives in a big city. No garage. He buys and changes wipers in the service. Thinks the synchronizer is a musical instrument. Likes to drop off female co-workers at the subway. Had a 5-year-old Mini Cooper, crashed it 6 months later, dreams of a used Porsche. Daily mileage, 150 kilometers, annual mileage, 40,000 kilometers. Sincerely considers himself a skillful and experienced driver, driving experience of 3 years. In short, Stepway is categorically contraindicated for guys. The portrait of an ideal owner looks like this: a family man of 45 years of age, lives in his own house in the countryside, has a garage and experience in repairing jiguli. Thirst for speed was quenched in his youth with a Java 350 motorcycle, night, highway, 120 km per hour without headlights. Does not have the need to constantly carry oversized loads, as well as more than 2 passengers. Does not have experience of riding on foreign cars. Daily mileage, 80 kilometers, annual mileage, 15,000 kilometers. Travels far, over 500 kilometers, twice a year. Likes to collect mushrooms and berries. Does not give in to provocations of noisemakers. Values property and health of people around him. Does not consider himself an ideal driver, driving experience of 25 years. In addition, in many reviews, authors mention that Stepway is not a bad option for the first car, especially for the fair sex, because its very character deters from the abuse of speed and dashing maneuvers. On the other hand, all this is well known to traffic police inspectors, which turns Sandero into an invisible car. This car is not interesting to hijackers at all, so some owners quite consciously did not spend money on installation of anti-theft systems. Indeed, what for, if in reviews the authors write that sometimes even doors are not closed and anyway nobody makes an attempt. In general, a workhorse for moving from point A to point B on not the best roads, an everyday helper, the choice of a practical person without special ambitions. Naturally, the automobile has its advantages and disadvantages, which are compensated by low price, but not more than that. The owner of Sandero Stepway does not have to be a villager at all, because some features of the design make it a good city car. Of course, it is not so much about capital cities with their high-speed highways and dense traffic. We will talk about what annoys Stepway owners in such conditions a little later, but about countless provincial and district cities and the main advantage of the Sandero Stepway in urban conditions is its maneuverability and compactness. It facilitates maneuvering in cramped conditions, the search for parking spaces, in short, all that poisons the urban life of any car owner. However, in capitals and large megacities, compactness is not superfluous at all. Here is what the owners of Sandero Stepway write. In their reviews, the car is very svelte, with a small turning radius. It fits into all sorts of nooks and yards without problems. Due to small dimensions, it is convenient to park in the city, compact, which has a positive effect on parking, the short base in the city works wonders on turns, and the total length of 4,020 mm eliminates the need to think about buying a Parktronic. Well, it is not needed here. I am my own Parktronic. For many owners this factor became a determining factor. In the course of making a decision on purchase, I started to look at Stepper. Quite a long time ago, as it is cute, tall, reliable, small, it means that it will be easier to park in our crowded neighborhood. Both Sandero and Sandero Stepway, however, as well as all other models of the Logan family, were initially created as very budget cars, designed primarily for the markets of poor countries. Accordingly, works on finalization of internal ergonomics were carried out on the minimum sufficient principle in the expectation that someone will be fine, and someone will forgive all the shortcomings with the thought, what else did you want from such an inexpensive car? But not everyone forgives, and there are indeed a lot of complaints about ergonomics. Naturally, many reviews mentioned inconveniently located keys for switching on the heated seats and adjusting the side mirrors. Here, of course, someone got used to it, and someone solved the issue radically. I found graspable toggle switches used on the railroad. They turn on and off perfectly by touch. Using the standard switches on the move can lead to an accident. It is very uncomfortable. Another parable is the traditional location of the klaxon button in the end of the steering wheel switch. For someone it does not create serious problems, they say, got used to it literally for a week, but there are those who for several years and did not manage to adapt and almost got into a serious accident because he was not able to signal in time. Quite a lot of claims to the instrument panel. On the one hand, everything seems to be normal, everything is at hand, but there are some points. In some reviews, columnar indicators of fuel level and engine temperature are called absolutely stupid. In some reviews, people complain about eternally blind block of heater control. They say they could put it under a seat at once and someone is irritated by night illumination. Control lamp of high beam shines too bright blue light so that it is not far to squint. I dim the brightness with a rag. A rag. There are a number of oddities in the interior equipment as well. Stepway is made for the countries of the third world, and in the third world everyone smokes. So they have made 3 places for ashtray and none for small things. Or here is such an observation, again the third world, where everyone smokes, does not drink and does not wear outerwear. I can see it like this: at the wheel of Stepway there is a naked Chingachgook with a peace pipe in his teeth, played by Goiko Midik. On the right side, his faithful squaw. In the back there are 3 bad white guys with gags in their teeth and hands tied behind. And in the trunk there is a considerable pile of scalps of other evil enemies of Indians, and among them a couple of French ones. Why did I get such a kick out of it, you asked? There are no coat hooks on the rear passenger's ceiling rails. I understand, the bad white guys don't care about them, they are thinking about scalps. But me and my passengers need hooks, so I had to figure out how to make them. Well, here's a problem like this: the spare is mounted under the floor of the luggage compartment. I decided to try taking the spare out and putting it back in. Brothers, it's an ambush. The spare weighs 16 kilograms, it is easy to take out, but it is put back in place with French zest. Of course, it is saved by a full set of well-known idiomatic expressions addressed to the compatriots Depardieu, Richard, Napoleon and all his army of 1812. I strongly recommend all owners of Stepway to take out and put the spare tire 2 to 3 times, so to speak, to practice, writes the author of one of the reviews. Some people are annoyed by a glove box that is too deep and it is impossible to get anything from the driver's seat. Some complain about too wide sills, which they constantly have to warn passengers about. But the main object of hatred for Sandero Stepway owners is the ergonomics of the driver's seat in general and the shape of the driver's seat in particular. These complaints can be quoted literally endlessly. I cannot keep 2 hands on the steering wheel for more than 20 minutes. After running about 250 kilometers, my left leg starts to show signs of fatigue, but my right leg does not. The right thigh hangs in the air, the foot is constantly tense, and it's not ergonomic shortcomings, it's lack of ergonomics. I assume that the matter is not only in the unsuccessful profile of the driver's seat, the mutual arrangement of the steering wheel, pedal unit and the gearbox lever is wrong. It is impossible to find a comfortable landing, the cushion is very short, the seat has a weak profile, the backrest does not hold the position, falls down, constantly, every day, it is necessary to twist. The steering wheel is adjustable only in height, and in a very narrow range, it lacks longitudinal adjustment. I really want to move closer, but if you adjust the correct position of the seat, then you have to reach for the steering wheel, your arms are in an extended position, and if you move closer, so that your arms do not flow, your legs start to leak, it is impossible to find a comfortable position, and if you go on a long trip, I always put a roll under the lumbar, otherwise after 2 to 3 hours my back does not feel comfortable. Of course, not everyone reacts so keenly. Someone writes, what did you want the interior in a car for $300,000 to be like in a Rolls-Royce? Well, or simply finishing is good, plastic does not squeak, it is more or less comfortable to sit, it is a pity, there is no lumbar support, there are isofix fastenings, devices are laconic ascetic, horn, I got used to it, window lifters, I got used to it, seat heating, I am getting used to it, mirror adjustment, conveniently. But in any case before purchase this automobile it is necessary to try on itself, that it was not painful. Sandero is a compact automobile. But, however surprisingly, authors of very many reviews among the main advantages of the model name are ruminous. Indeed, even very high people do not complain about crampedness on the first row of seats. Things are somewhat worse on the second row. There behind the tall driver can comfortably accommodate only children because the wheelbase is 4 centimeters less than that of Renault Logan. But drivers of average height note that behind to sit well, it is spacious for 2, legs do not freeze, feet are comfortable, except that it is not too convenient to enter, go out and close a door. As for the trunk, nobody expresses special delight, though nobody complains about the fact that there is no trunk either. At most they complain about not the most convenient arrangement of luggage compartment, side niches are occupied by jack, cylinder, and towing eye. But tell me, good people, where should I, a peasant, go, I mean, to put an emergency stop sign, first aid kit, fire extinguisher, cable, compressor? Or they will scold the deformable shelf that closes the luggage compartment. But in very many reviews write about the fact that the rear row of seats folds much easier and faster than in many other cars. Well, and having folded the rear row, either completely, or 1/3 or 2/3, the owner gets quite solid volumes for transportation of various cargoes. Carried a 4-burner gas stove, washing machine for 5 kilograms, no problems, when the rear seat is folded down, 2 wooden pallets or 2 cylinders with oxygen can fit. Carried 500 kilograms of paving slabs to the Dacia. I had to transport things during the renovation of the office. At one time in the car went a bedside table, a large office chair, a safe and a bunch of other small stuff, transported all the Dacia stuff in one time, and when I dumped everything near the entrance, there was a pile visually more than half of the car in. The fall began to pour the foundation for the bath. As a result, in some places I drove 100 to 110 on the ground, on clay and bumps, with 10 bags of cement, without breaking the suspension, well, not once. What only the owners did not carry on this outwardly small car, a sofa, a TV set with a meter diagonal, a couple of adult bicycles, a refrigerator with a height of 175 centimeters, a snow roller, water trails and a baby stroller at the same time. And here it is worth noting that the authors of many reviews emphasize that at maximum load the car, of course, goes like a barge, but it does not sag and does not scrape the asphalt with mudguards. And yet let's admit, Sandero Stepway meets the transportation needs of a family with 1 child quite well, but with 2 children, not always. On the one hand, there is nothing supernatural with microclimate in the cabin of Sandero Stepway, heater heats, air conditioner cools. But as always, there are some buts, and very sensitive. Very many reviews describe strangeness of airflow's organization in the cabin. For example, you are driving in winter. It is Obuti, 15 degrees outside. And here your left leg is cold, the right one is not too hot, and the passenger on the right asks to lower the temperature, as his legs are fried. And all the matter is in location of air ducts, a stream of warm air passes below pedals, not getting on driver's legs. In many reviews, the authors note that in winter the lower part of the windshield starts to freeze, just in the wiper's resting area. Air ducts behind the dashboard blow the windshield about 15 centimeters above the edge of the glass, connected with the dashboard. In principle, this issue can be solved by controlled diffusers, increasing the temperature of the heater and directing the streams to the windshield and partially to the side windows, but then the feet start to freeze and the rear windows start to freeze. There are even some strange solutions. I'll allow myself a rather lengthy quote. It's 21, it's cold, and I have to go. I started, warm it up, drive. There are 3 of us in the car, the time flies by unnoticed. About 10 minutes later I felt that something was wrong in the cabin, the heater was warming up, everyone was warm, and the front side windows were completely clean, and the rear ones were fogged up just a little bit. I'm driving like summer. It's an obsession. And it should have fogged in the front by the 1st of March, and in the back by the 2nd of March. I looked at the light bulb indicating open doors, so it is, something is open. I stopped, that's the reason. The clapper is not closed. I closed it, drove off, in 5 minutes everything was fogged up as usual. I drive and think, if a millimeter gap gave such an effect, are there any ventilation holes at all, and if there are they open? Quickly to the garage, took off the ventilation grills, they are 15 centimeters down from the lock bracket, turned on the carrier and looked inside, in the direction of the tail lights. The great Stanislavski, standing on the theater stage, in such situations paused and said, I don't believe it. I, standing in the garage, spit on the floor, said, "Bastards." Stuck my hand first to the left lamp, then to the right, and with a slight effort pulled out two identical pieces of thermal insulation. With dimensions of 16 by 18 centimeters and with holes in the center with a diameter of 1 centimeter. These pieces were attached to the ventilation valves. The windows fog up both in winter and summer, in rain, even when the air conditioner is working. But in winter it is quite possible to do without heating of a steering wheel. I have estimated already at face value in winter. I have turned on a steering wheel, adjusted temperature and, oh, a miracle. Here you have a heated steering wheel. So I drove all winter without gloves. There is one more problem connected with the air conditioner operation. The lining under the carpets gets wet all the time due to the fact that condensate from the drainage of the climate system at the pre-maximum modes of operation flows directly into the cabin. The carpet has to be dried and the seats have to be taken out and partially disassembled. Let's agree at once, any crosshatch in principle cannot be an adequate substitute even for a real all-wheel drive crossover, not to mention real off-roaders with their locks and downshifts. But such cars still have certain advantages in comparison with an ordinary passenger car, and to Sandero Stepway all this refers in full measure. Not in vain the majority of owners note passability among the main advantages of this model, high clearance allowed to park everywhere. Without fearing that you will hit with a bumper, I love fishing, had time to drive in ravines and mud. Short gears only for the benefit, the ground clearance is about 17 centimeters, I drove to the Dacia on the off-road and only in one place. Where earlier I always clung with all the bottom on Peugeot 406, only a little scraped the muffler because of my self-confidence. On the average off-road, field, village roads, behaves wonderfully. It can drive up a low curb in the city. Naturally, Stepway remains a passenger car in its essence, and this should be taken into account. It is difficult, but possible to get stuck on a short car with small overhangs, normal clearance, a traction engine paired with the right clutch. It is necessary to turn off your head and follow never. Passability is super, naturally, against the background of cars of class B. I am not going to say that I passed where Cruisac 200 got stuck. I am an adequate person. Stepway's passability for the city is sufficient. The main thing is to make friends with your head, because you can get stuck in a tank. Those who are in the subject, think about it. The bumpers are made of thin plastic. It is easy to tear them off in normal mud. Especially the rear one, and the class of the car is not the same. It is still a normal car, and it is not designed for off-roading. But you can safely drive just on dirt roads and forest paths. The first gear is tractive, short, engine protection is good, the bottom is flat, all pipes are covered, there is nothing to tear off there, well, only if the oxygen sensor is unsuccessfully located, or rather, its wires. But Stepway's advantages are especially pronounced in winter, when, as you know, snow falls and our yards turn into off-road testing grounds. Here is what its owners write about winter operation of Sandero Stepway. The winter was snowy, so additional space under the underbody gave more freedom in the conditions of snow-covered city. Short pair allows to move on a snowdrift in tension. Traction is enough with reserve. It feels as if you are driving on a downshift. Clearance and overhangs are enough to drive through rather large snowdrifts and mush. About 30 centimeters deep, winter, frost, snow mush in the yard. First gear, I let go of the pedals and at idle speeds, cheaper, without tugging and without digging into the snow, I drive out of the yard. Over the winter never once tugged. We have near the house is often no parking spaces if you arrive late, although there is still a platform without asphalt on sedans there, and in the summer almost no one comes in. I often park there, standing among jeeps, and never got stuck. The engine is good at the bottom. In ice I start from 2, I can also start from 3 gear, I never grind the ice. In winter there was hell in the city, everything was drifted, transportation didn't run, stores didn't work, only off-roaders, crossovers and me. In winter there was hell in the city, everything was drifted, transportation didn't run, stores didn't work, only off-roaders, crossovers and me drove on the roads. But winter is not only snow, it's also frost. Here everything is not so unambiguous. On the one hand, all owners unanimously claim that they have not encountered any serious problems when starting the engine even in severe frosts. Many explain it by an unexpectedly powerful standard battery, which capacity is 70 Ah. But here are not serious problems. At temperatures below W15C, the engine has to spin for 3 to 5 seconds, after which it starts as if nothing had happened. This feature completely kills the advantages of auto start. The alarm system makes 3 attempts, and although at each next attempt duration of the starter cranking increases, it is still not enough. In general, auto start in frosts helps not always. There are also a number of other unpleasant moments. We have already written about the problems of fogging and frosting of windows, as well as not the best distribution of airflows. This problem is aggravated by not the best work of standard snowplow brushes, especially the right one. There is one more trouble, which is mentioned in very many reviews. In frost the rear doors tend to freeze to the seals, amazingly. The rear doors freeze to the upper seal, and it's completely solid. I have not met such a thing yet. Rear doors and trunk lock freeze up completely, the essential disadvantage of rear doors. Seals freeze up so much that it seems that you are about to tear off the door when you start to open it. There are complaints and on not too conveniently located neck of washer tank. However, with this inconvenience it is possible to put up with, especially if to realize that such arrangement has quite rational grounds. It allows washing liquid to be in liquid aggregate state for a long time. Pardon for tautology. The tank is simply located in the warmest place in the underhood. As for visibility, it's business as usual. The owners have quite a lot of complaints about the rearward view, especially about the side mirrors with seemingly large dimensions actually give a narrow field of view. Besides, they cannot be folded. Due to the specific aerodynamics of the car, the dirt quickly covers the side windows and mirrors. Often I have to wipe them, so I carry a roll of napkins in the trunk. The interior mirror also gets it. The rear mirror is annoying. It is too close in reflection. I got confused when parking. The already mentioned aerodynamics also aggravates the situation. Sandero Stepway is a classic dirtbag. The rear window always gets dirty. In winter and in the rain, in principle, the wiper saves, but in summer, in the heat so much dust takes on itself. In this case, the windshield wiper makes the first stroke without washer, so that the glass is necessarily scratched. Pity him, so I stop sometimes and just wash a rag with water, writes the author of one of the reviews. There are also questions about forward visibility. Firstly, many people point out that the front pillars overlap quite serious areas. The left pillar is tense. There were 2 dangerous moments. I saw a pedestrian on the left at the last moment, and the scooter in the left turn was found only 5 meters away from me. But even more complaints about the work of the windshield wiper and the quality of the brushes. The standard wipers do not clean a damn thing. Change, and immediately after purchase. I'm already tired of cleaning the wipers. There are always stripes on the windshield plus an incomprehensible haze on the glass after the wipers pass. It goes away in about 5 to 7 seconds, but imagine, in a heavy downpour, it's like driving in smoke. And, of course, the famous tear, the liquid that accumulates in the upper part of the windshield and rolls down. As for the acoustic comfort in the interior of the car, no one expected that in a budget hatchback it will be at the level of a business class sedan. But the whole trouble is that noise insulation of Sandero Stepway is not good even by the standards of segment B. In many reviews, the authors categorically state there is almost no noise. Indeed, noise insulation is almost completely absent both in the doors and on the engine panel. As a result, all possible components of traffic noise are heard in the cabin. Engine noise starts to irritate from 300 revolutions and it is 100 km per hour in the 5th gear. This is the limit of acoustic comfort. Further acceleration will be accompanied by unpleasant pressing on ears and causing pity to the engine noise. Aerodynamic noises are clearly audible, and, as it turned out, you can fight it from somewhere from above from 80 km per hour in strong wind. There was rather annoying aerodynamic noise. I thought it was the rails, but no, a randomly glued inside the gutter seal, the same as under the hood, completely eliminated this noise. Naturally, the noise insulation of wheel arches is absolutely insufficient. If the road is puffy, that's it, it's like a rattle near your ear. On long trips, you get tired of road noise. It's not the surrounding cars, you just hear yourself driving well, and the more you drive, the better you know how to identify the road surface by sound. Even self-installed additional noise insulation can't solve this problem. I applied 2 layers of rubber bitumen mastic on the rear wheel arches and at the same time on the entire surface of the trunk up to the rear seats. The shot of stones on the arches disappeared, and in general in the area of rear seats became quieter, but if a pebble from a wheel gets into the muffler, it feels like it flies into the cabin. In addition, acoustic vibrations from rolling wheels are transmitted through the suspension elements, and this is not cured by applying mastic or installing fenders. And this symphony is complemented by the singing of crickets in the cabin. Their habitats are quite individual, but many people complain about them. I have squeaks and cracks everything, doors, occasionally. In the torpedo, rear shelf and body pillars, everything squeaks. On smooth asphalt there is no noise, but such asphalt in the city practically does not happen. The interior sang, incomprehensible sounds from the sides of the mirrors on the driver's side, apparently, the cover of the fuse box. What's on the left side, no guesses yet, probably the deflector or the air duct, maybe the glove box still. Also, the steering column shroud is singing, but the sound seems to be coming from under the dash. I recommend to all owners to take out the stereo and to treat the connector well with noise-absorbing material. The pad with contacts also knocks. Almost 100% of owners indicate reliability and endurance as the most important advantages of the Sandero Stepway. In many reviews, the authors write that for many years they have never once faced the need for really serious repairs. In terms of reliability, everything is excellent, changed in it only headlight bulbs a couple of times, some significant repairs do not remember. And for a mileage of 100, you can say that almost never broke down. I consider reliability very worthy. I put 5 stars for reliability, as the car is really unkillable. I am satisfied with Sandero in general. I do not look under the hood at all. Once I spent 5 minutes looking for where to fill the washer fluid, and I am ashamed of myself. Of course, this does not mean that no one has ever had a car breakdown. There are quite characteristic diseases, for example, thermostat, internal dust covers of ball joints, ignition coils. Naturally, we have to intervene in the suspension. Good thing, both the work and the spare parts themselves do not amaze with prices. But in general, as one of the authors wrote, by the way, a car mechanic himself, there is nothing to repair. Overhauled the suspension at 100,000 kilometers of mileage and continued to drive another 100. Overhauled the engine at 500,000 kilometers and keep on driving until the body rots to 1,000,000. But you will have to wait a long time for something that will rot. There are still complaints about the quality of the paintwork and what to do, the fight for ecology, and owners complain, very delicate paint. The slightest touch with something more or less hard, a scratch. For 2 years it has accumulated a lot of scratches. The car is black, the primer under the paint is white, you can see everything. But there are no complaints about corrosion resistance. On the contrary, there is a kind of surprise. There were chips, of course, but none of them colored. So there are no questions to the metal. Even chipping to iron did not show for 5 years, and a hint of rust. A very big plus is the metal, it is galvanized. On the Colina for a year from hitting pebbles began spiders, and here 2 years ago scratched the door to galvanized, and I never painted, and there is no rust. And now, in one of the reviews the author describes how after a serious accident his broken car stood under snow and rain for a long time, and nothing rusted anywhere. Speaking of accidents, in several reviews the authors write that Sandero Stepway actually saved both driver and passengers, as the car is very strong. If I had been in a VAZ, everything would have ended much sadder for my passengers in the back. The metal is thick enough. I note the high rigidity of the body. After the impact the front windshield did not even crack, although the left engine mount to the body broke in half. Safety was checked head-on with a standing 10 at about 10 to 20 km per hour. Renault 1, headlight, bumper, fender, and left on its own. The whole front end of the 10s is under restoration. A powerful blow to the right side of the Sandero bent the right pillar, but I want to say that even the police were surprised at how strong the car was. Well, I want to sum up with the statement of a person who bought Sandero Stepway forcibly and at first was far from delighted with the car. After getting used to a person, after understanding that it is really yours, after realizing that a person will not betray, love arises. It is the same here. The car pleased me and continues to please me day after day. You sit down and realize that it will not betray you, that after turning the key, you will get from point A to point B without a hitch. But all the same, the main claims of owners refer to the dynamic characteristics of the Sandero Stepway. And the main reason for all these claims is frankly weak engines. First of all, it refers to the most mass 1.6-litre 8-valve K7M with an output of 84 h.p. This old, proven by years, reliable and at the same time very noisy and fresh by its characteristics engine without whimsy eats 92 th gasoline, indiscriminate to the choice of gears, pulls from any RPM, not prone to detonation, at 50 km/h you can include 5-gear. And smoothly pressing the accelerator pedal to start accelerating, surprisingly unpretentious. But it has no character at all. Acceleration is smooth, without surges and pickups. In a word, this engine is suitable only for measured driving. And this engine is paired with a 5-speed gearbox with closed gears. The result is quite clear. Owners write in reviews, if you like to chase, Stepway is definitely not for you. I had to change the manner of driving. But in a traffic jam, when the mainstream is moving slowly, you can switch on a gear, release pedals, and Stepway will crawl very slowly, as if on automatic. In the city, such a tandem is still acceptable, but on the highway, problems inevitably arise. Accelerating from 80 km/h is a problem. Fourth gear doesn't go, third gear is useless. The engine roars, there is almost no acceleration. The balance of comfortable traction control is shifted to the side of uniform movement. It will not be possible to accelerate sharply from 80 km/h for tense overtaking on 5 and 4 gears. The third gives the necessary acceleration, but the noise is prohibited. More and more often I feel that there is not enough traction at the lows at all. After 3,000 revolutions the car pulls, but depresses the fact that for acceleration it is necessary either to screw up the engine, sacrificing economy, or to work actively with a stirrer and a gas pedal. At overtaking it is necessary to estimate everything. Well, as the pedal in a floor, it is not about this car. The stream goes with speed 100 to 120 km/h, lorries not less than 100 km/h, and I go confidently, quietly and long I cannot, even alone, with an empty trunk, the motor does not give. I drive up to 100 km/h, I interfere with everyone. Going beyond 100 km/h, I bump into the truck. On 4 and 5 gears, no way, I can't make it to the oncoming car, and there is only one option, third gear, gas to the floor, revolutions 4,000 to 5,500, but there is no reserve. If you make a mistake, you're lost. And such statements can be quoted literally endlessly. And also Stepway has a noticeable sailing, that together with a high seating position, pliable winter tires and soft suspension makes quite nervous when parting with lorries, especially on a slippery road. The car literally drifts off the road, and Stepway rolls in corners quite well. However, everything is not so smooth in the city. When air conditioner is switched on, the engine lacks power, everything stops, both traction and power steering, when starting to drive. At intersections with air conditioner switched on, I noticed a dip in RPM. I switch on one gear, and from 750 RPM, if I sharply press the gas pedal, there is at first a dip to 500 RPM, and then slow acceleration. This, of course, refers to the most budget versions with 75 horsepower K7J, but this small volume engine brakes when the gas pedal is released and the gear is engaged, like an adult. It's like the engine brake is on, says one of the owners in his review. The 84 horsepower Sandero Stepway brakes quite effectively. But their owners have something to complain about when driving in the city. Short first gear just torches when driving, just from the place started. You need the second, from the traffic lights. In order not to lose speed at the time of switching, you have to rev up to 3,500 RPM in the first, the car roars, then with a jerk switching to the second. There are also claims directly to the 5-speed manual, which was equipped with the most popular versions of Sandero Stepway. Not only it lacks the 6th gear, but also the rear gear does not have a synchronizer. The control does not like quick shifts. My advice, when changing gears, hold the lever in neutral for 1 second, say to yourself, 501, and you will be happy. I shift downshift with a throttle, writes one of the owners. Rear gear is constantly engaged with a squeak. We have to avoid it, to switch on the first and then the rear, echoed him others. And everything would be all right if the lack of dynamics was compensated by high economy. But no, most owners complain that the consumption is significantly higher than they expected. I was not pleased with the gasoline consumption in mixed mode, something about 10 to 11 liters per 100. The main thing for me is the issue of economy. The car is voracious. The minimum consumption, which I was able to get, is when traveling to the village, 470 kilometers there and back. I drove measured, tried not to accelerate more than 100 kilometers per hour, 8.1 liters, 100 kilometer. The expense for such a car is frankly big, very big. In the mixed cycle and on the highway, at a speed of 120 and above, about 9 liters. At the same time on Lagos van, with almost full load and the same motor, the consumption was 5.5 and dynamics was more cheerful. What is the power, brother? Who knows? Write the authors of reviews. Some of them complain that in winter the consumption can reach 12 to 13 L 100 km. It is noteworthy that owners of versions with 103 horsepower 16-valve K4M and automatic DP2 are generally satisfied with the dynamics and do not complain about consumption. According to them, the power is enough for any everyday tasks, to overtake a truck on the highway or to accelerate sharply to catch a flashing green traffic light. And the consumption, according to them, is about 6.2 L 100 km on the highway, in the city with average traffic jams, 7.7 L 100 km, in deep traffic jams, up to 8.6 L 100 km. In what absolutely all authors of reviews about Sandero Stepway agree, including those who simply tear the car on bumps for lack of comfort they need, noise, lack of dynamics and faults in ergonomics, so it is in the highest estimation of suspension work. Yes, all cars on B0 platform are famous for that, absolutely omnivorous, unpretentious, energy-consuming, enduring and relatively cheap. In repair, suspension allows blowing on any road in style, more gas, less pits. It copes equally well with bumpy soils and with graders and with broken asphalt. Well, and further a word to owners, the combination of softness and unbreakability gives a feeling of safety and relaxes. I have ceased to look tensely into the cloth of the road. Even if I yawn a serious pothole, nothing terrible will happen. Shocks from small and medium bumps do not reach the body, they remain at the level of wheels. Serious shocks do not pierce through. The first 3 to 4 days of driving I wanted to pinch myself. Am I dreaming? Are these roads mine? Where are you, lying policeman? I will tell boxing language, pass at misses blows to the head, Stepway takes them on forearms, the most energy-consuming suspension which I came across. I had to drive on many cars of different class, but I have not met such impenetrability, very elastic and quiet. In driving the car immediately appears carelessness, you stop paying attention to many imperfections of our roads, within reason. Of course, for the suspension you forgive it a lot, especially after that there are, of course, certain limitations. For example, the suspension does not like high-speed cornering, the car bogs down, and on large bumps the car goes a little goat. But all this is perceived as annoying trifles, the reverse side of the possibility to move with sufficient comfort on bad roads and not feel like an astronaut on the vibration test. There is an opinion among Stepway owners that the suspension was transferred to Logan and then to Sandero from some developed, but never launched in series vans and minibuses with weight up to 3-5 tons, that's why it turned out to be so enduring. Frankly speaking, I can neither confirm nor deny this statement. One thing I can state unequivocally, if the main requirement to the car you are planning to buy is the possibility of comfortable, though slow moving on broken asphalt, then Sandero Stepway will suit you quite well. In conclusion, the Renault Sandero Stepway I B90 presents a compelling choice for those seeking a practical and affordable vehicle. With its spacious interior, impressive ground clearance, and fuel efficiency standing out as key advantages. However, potential buyers should also consider the drawbacks, such as limited engine options and a somewhat basic interior design. Ultimately, whether to buy or not depends on individual priorities and preferences. Weighing these 5 reasons carefully will help you make an informed decision that aligns with your needs. Thank you for watching, and we hope this guide has been helpful in your car buying journey.